when it comes to the long walk, between the themes of brotherhood, the dystopian America that it paints, it really reminds you that when it comes to Stephen King, he is so much more than a king of horror. He is a king of creating worlds and characters that have lasting impact. So to summarize the film, it isn't 100% clear what happened in America, but it fell from grace. It's no longer number one economically, in terms of productivity, and in order to kind of course correct, especially after what might have been a civil war, the military seemingly started the long walk. The long walk, at least for this film, is a over 300-mile journey in which strictly young men can join a lottery to be chosen, and only one can win. And the one young man who wins, he gets his wish, riches, the works. And in this iteration of the long walk, we focus mainly on a young man named Ray, who's from one of the more rural or country areas, possibly the South or Midwest, lower Midwest, not like Chicago Midwest. And he has a specific dream regarding something dealing with the major who runs the long walk. But while he is focused on that, he also makes friends with a young man named Peter and a huge amount of the young men who are walking alongside him as they form camaraderie, even as it's time for each one to face their end. So, getting to the review section. Top highlight has to be David Johnson as Peter. For when it comes to Peter, he is not only what holds everything together for this movie, but I would say is that ideal supporting character. He's the one that makes it so everybody looks good, everybody gets attention, everybody comes off interesting. For as much as there is a focus on Ray and his backstory and why he's doing a long walk, I would submit that at a certain point Ray kind of gets boring, but Peter keeps him interesting through the brotherhood that he forms with him. And then Peter also helps other characters like Arthur, like Hank, and even when it comes to the sort of villain and kind of nutcase Gary, he makes him interesting because of how he projects onto them. He has that type of charisma which isn't just star power, which makes him burn bright, but also illuminates other people. And it makes it so that when it comes to David Johnson, who I knew from, what's that HBO show? It'll be titled down below. But since that show and him leaving, I believe in the first, if not second season, I haven't really seen him much. I know that he's been popping up in other things. I think he's in the new Alien show right now. But, no, he was in the Alien movie that came out last year. That's what he was. But point of the matter is, this is the type of performance which is likely going to put him up there with Michael Clarke Duncan when it came to the Green Mile, Morgan Freeman with Shawshank Redemption, or even if we're so lucky, he'll be up there with Kathy Bates in terms of not only having a notable role, but hopefully having a major accolade attached to his name because of what he did with King's material. The next highlight for us is definitely going to be that even though, as we'll talk about now, in the fence portion, some of the world building, character building isn't the best here, I will say as the long walk goes on, it does become more and more difficult to lose characters because ultimately, you know that 49 of these young men have to die. But in the beginning, you're kind of hedging your bets. You're like, I just want Peter to win, or maybe just want Ray to win, Arthur, whoever. But as time goes on, you start seeing people get shot, sometimes graphically, other times kind of the faded background. It becomes more difficult to just accept the fact that you're rooting for this one person because you will forever be rooting for that person and hedging your bets or whatever, but you're not going to want to see this character, that character die because even if they're not your favorite, you do kind of grow an attachment to them. Their personality, even if it's Gary, who's a bit of a butthead, you are so used to them being around, having their smart remarks, being this little oddball, that then when they get shot because they can't walk anymore and they get killed, at first it's just like, damn, I can't believe they did that. But toward the end, you can get a little bit emotional, especially as people start doing little speeches, monologues, having moments. And it's just like, we just understand the brutality of the situation and realize that, as Ray says early on, it's not a case of where if you can't walk anymore at 3 miles per hour, it's just like you get one of those old school cartoon gun to your head and it just says bang on a piece of paper. It's a literal bullet that's going to tear through skin and flesh and leave you on the road basically no better than the roadkill. And to add on the fact that this is all being filmed for America, it just adds on a layer of as much as you may eventually find value in these people, clearly the country doesn't, because we don't even see them at least get picked up and get a proper burial. They're just dead on the road, bleeding out on the asphalt, which leads it on the fence topic. And it should be noted, this is, of course, a film that is based on a book, so a lot of the details could perhaps be in the book, and they just didn't decide to translate them over to the movie, which is unfortunate, but also due to the course. But I will say, if you're somebody who's never read the book, didn't read the synopsis, and you're somebody who believes that the movie should be at least good enough where you don't have to read the book, this is not a film for you, because one of the issues that come off in the beginning is that you're told America has had some kind of downfall, but it's not telling you what exactly happened. Was it a civil war? Was it a political one? Was it because a financial collapse because of our debt or something? All we know is that America is not what it used to be, and it's not really given a lot of details. And then when it comes to the characters, yes, we get Ray's backstory, even flashbacks, but when it comes to everybody else, they may give you a line of why they're in the long walk, maybe a line about their background, but it's one of those cases where if you blink, you miss it kind of situations. And on top of that, I would say in the beginning, I would say the first kill is probably chosen just because of how innocent and nice that person looks. But when it comes to the real harder characters to like or love, again, it's one of those situations where because they've been around so much, because you get used to, because they became part of, for lack of a better way of putting it, the routine when it comes to watching this, that's why they did Deaths Matter. But as for who they are, why they're walking, for a good portion of them, it's forgettable. And who they are is, you may remember their number, their name while watching, maybe where they were from, but as for having this feeling that you got to know them on an intimate level, like there's somebody who is built so that you're not just focused on Ray or Peter winning, but anybody winning. They don't get that American Idol treatment where it's like full on get to know them sob story. Some of them, in the end, have this little moment where it feels like it could be a sob story. It definitely could make you cry, but it's just not as impactful as you think it should be, or at least as I thought it should have been. But overall, when it comes to The Long Walk, it does not feel like something that just releases in theaters, has this moment that ends up on some streaming platform to justify you paying your monthly fee. I wouldn't say it's a classic either, but I think there's something about the way of Peter forming Brotherhood kind of reminds you some of Stephen King's non-horror productions in terms of showing what it means to have camaraderie, what it means to have some type of investment in a person. And as much as we may have kind of pointed out that we don't like how the world building and character development is not that great, at the same time, you could look at it as you shouldn't need a person's life story to value them, to bond with them and feel invested in them. It could just be because they're a human being sharing the same experience as you, and that should be all you need. And really just having it where a film can be pushed toward entertainment, potentially have deeper messages, but not feel like it's really pushing that on you or trying to really like get your wheels turning. It brings that kind of balance, which makes it why we think this film is ultimately worth seeing in theaters if possible, but if theaters nowhere near you or it's a little bit difficult to get to, at the very least when it comes out on digital or streaming.